right up here. That means how often should I add those little anchor points that you see it add. You see those little squares that gets added? And what happens is if you have a really complex edge, like a tree or something else, it's not going to be adding those anchor points enough to make it accurate around there. It'll be more generalized. And you might notice that when I go to the top of the pump, it kind of generalized the shape. Let me see if I can zoom up there. Do you see how it missed that one little upturning area? And it's most likely because it wasn't adding enough of those dots. The frequency setting controls how often it puts those dots down. So I could bring the frequency way up. Now it's going to be able to do a much more intricate edge because it's going to be putting down a lot of those dots. So let's see if it's any better when I go around that top. Might or might not be.
That's frequency by distance, not by time, right?
I don't know the exact way it's thinking. It just means more frequently put it down. It's not like they're not evenly spaced. So I don't know the exact, if it just runs into detail and puts them down or what, but it means put down more of them more frequently. It still didn't get that perfect, but the main thing is the more complex the edge, the higher the frequency should be. Okay? And again, I just click on the word and drag. There's another setting, though, called contrast. And contrast says how big of a difference does there need to be between the object and its background before it considers it to be an edge that it can cling to. So if you need to get things that are very similar, where the subject and background are real similar, you're going to have to lower the contrast. If it starts selecting and grabbing too much, like it starts grabbing little clouds that are behind there in the sky and other detail that's not part of this pump, you probably need to bring the contrast up to say only cling to things that are more dramatically different. Okay? When you're doing this also, if it messes up, you're going around something and see how it added a dot up in the sky, you can just hit the delete key and it should delete the last dot it added, and that way you can back up and keep going. But I don't want to spend too much time on that tool. I just wanted to let you know a few basic tips about it. With some things it's good, but it's a little low tech in the tool. The main thing is if you don't know about caps lock, then that tool just seems to be absolutely useless because you're not seeing what's going on. And I wanted to mention that you can change the size of the circle using your bracket keys. The other thing you can change is if you use the greater than and less than symbols. They look like kind of sideways letter V's. You can change the contrast setting as you're going around. So that way, if you get to an area that has a little bit of contrast between subject and background, you can lower that contrast so it can cling to it. You get to another area where it's selecting too much of stuff you didn't want, you could use the greater than and less than keys to increase the contrast. But those aren't obvious because how would you know? You just have to know that the thing exists. Let's see if there is anything else. When you're using that, if you run into an area where it just cannot handle it, is trying to cling to things, as with any lasso tool, you can hold down the Option key and click, and now you're making a freeform shape. You're saying, I'll do that part manually because it just couldn't handle it. Then just let go of the Option key and click again, and it will start clinging again. All right, then let's talk about, because those are our lasso tools. We only have a few more selection tools to go, then we get on to other things. So those of you that are bored, we'll move on in a minute. All right, other things, and that is I can come in and remember how I had a selection around an area, and I used the magic wand tool, held down the Option key, because Option means take away, Alt Windows, and took away from it, like that. Well, there's a setting involved, and that is if you have the magic wand tool active, there's a choice at the top that's called tolerance. And tolerance means how big of a difference can there be between the area that you clicked on and what I should select. So if tolerance is set to 0, it means select only the exact color that I'm clicking on. Wherever that color is found, select only that exact color. As you bring this up higher and higher, it means it can vary a little bit in brightness, vary a little bit in color, and it will still get selected. The highest this goes to, I think, is 255, and that has to do with how your image is made behind the scenes, which hopefully we'll have time to get to a little bit later on today. One other setting up here, and that is